So you've got to figure out, well, how many hours a day am I going to work? How many days per week am I going to work? How many weeks per year? And you take those three numbers, multiply them together, and that's how many hours you have decided you're going to invest in your business.
You work with several freelancers and startups. What are some of the mistakes that they often go through?
Pricing is the biggest mistake. One of the great misconceptions that we have when we start our business is that we think that if I announce to the world that I'm now a business coach, we think that we are now automatically on equal footing with all other business coaches, and we're not.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Sudev.
Welcome to Business Club again.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Nice to be here too, and especially having a conversation with you. I learn something new every time. So it excites me to have you always here.
Well, thank you.
And this series of doing this once a week is going to be excellent because we're going to be touching upon different topics each time. Today's topic is how to design and build a new business, right?
Yes.
So any initial thoughts?
I've been trying to solve that problem in earnest for the last 6 years. And it boils down to this. There's a certain amount of things that we need to know as soon as possible. That's what I think I'm sneaking up on.
Basically, at the end of the day, when you start doing it, you want to narrow it down and say, is my idea any good? That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So what are the components that go into making that kind of a decision?
After lots of conversations, I've decided that the very first element to whether or not my business is any good is, can it make any money? And how am I going to figure that out? So the first and key ingredient is being able to map the business out on paper. How many gigs do
White paper?
Just to write it down.
Oh, you mean?
So that you can see what it looks like. I got to do this many gigs at this price in order to make the money that I want. That's the fundamental thing.
Got it. How do you help clients narrow down exactly what they want? Because there's a lot of information out there. They're like way too much information that you can consume or you can imagine, right? I think there's information more than the speed of thought. So.
That's very, very true. If we wake up one morning and decide, I'm going to go start my own business, we got two major problems staring us in the face. Number one, we've never done this before. So like most things that we've never done before, we're not very good at it.
Right.
And we really don't know what we don't know. And that's really true in starting up your own business.
Gray area.
And then when you realize that I don't know what I don't know, well, I think I'll go find out how to do that.
And then
Okay,
there's so
fine.
much information.
What book are you going to read first? I mean, there's only about 100,000 of them, and I'm sure you got the time to plow through all of them, right? No, you don't. And they're all good and valuable to some degree, but they are more than you need to know at the beginning. In the beginning, you just need to know those fundamental things.
Right. And any specific tools or strategies that you recommend that the new people who are starting businesses go through?
We've talked about this before. Then I do believe it starts with Ikigai. It starts with you. And who are you? What are your strengths? What do you really want to do? What is the difference that you want to make? You can think that I'm going to go into business to make money. Fine. That's the grand hope. But if you're going into it only to make money, it won't be any fun. If you have to wind up doing something you don't like doing, it's going to be horrible.
Right.
The trick is to get your thoughts together so that you're doing what you love to do, you're good at it, you can make some money doing it. And that fourth one is the big one. Who is it I really want to help? What's the difference I want to make? Impact. Yeah.
So you also mentioned, in our conversations, you mentioned tools like ChatGPT, AI, Perplexity.ai, and LinkedIn as some of the tools that you use to do your market research. How do you go about doing that?
I'm not exactly sure which one to start with. I kind of lean towards LinkedIn. If you know who you are and what it is you want to do, I guarantee you there's somebody out there doing it already. Go look at what they're doing. Go find them on LinkedIn. Go read their profile, go look at their websites, and try to figure out how they are bringing that idea to the market.
Right.
Get some feedback outside of your own head as to what other people are doing with the idea. So I think that's the great place to start. And then once you start seeing what those messages look like, then open up ChatGPT and start interviewing yourself. Like you pretend that ChatGPT is you,
Right.
and you're the interviewer.
You're the
and
client.
You're the you're the client, and you're trying to get information about your business. So I understand you do this. Tell me, how do you do that?
Do you have an example
Of
how do you approach ChatGPT?
just say, this is the business I want to start. Okay, this is whatever you can copy and paste from the LinkedIn profiles that you already looked at. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And then say, okay, I want you, ChatGPT, to be that person so that I, as a client, can now talk to you. And you tell me, how do you do what you do? How do you find your clients? Every question that you can come up with about what you have about your own business, ask ChatGPT.
And they give you ChatGPT.
It'll give you answers. Are they the right answers? I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be, but it's going to at least get you on the right track, and it's going to get you thinking in the right direction. We think way too much about, this is what I do. Don't you really care about what I do? No, you don't. You don't care about that. You care about, what can I do for you?
Correct, yes.
And that's the way we got to be able to think about our idea. Put yourself in the client's position and start asking these questions. Well, how can you really help me? How are you going to help my business?
Right.
And start getting the information that way.
That's a great start. Now, once you started, you asked the right questions. The question is, what's the kind of pricing that will actually help me become profitable, or how will it help me make money? That's the key question.
Yeah, the question in building a successful business, the linchpin, the keystone element is the price of your primary product. Because you as a freelancer can only do so much.
That's true.
You have a limited amount of time. So you've got to figure out, well, how many hours a day am I going to work? How many days per week am I going to work? How many weeks per year? And you take those three numbers, multiply them together, and that's how many hours you have decided you're going to invest in your business. The big mistake we make is, I have 8 hours a day. No, you don't. Nobody can work 8 hours in a day.
True work, you mean?
Your true work.
You may work from 9 to 5, but you really are not working all the 9 to 5 hours.
You're not working on the critical stuff. You're working on other stuff, and you need time to do that.
Yeah.
If you're a freelancer, every now and again, you're going to have to do accounting.
Right. That's not, it's important, but it's not critical.
Right. But you're going to have to do it. So figuring out that price is based upon the time that you have available and how long does your gig take. And by dividing those two numbers, you can figure out, well, this is how many gigs I could possibly do.
Right. Over the course of the year.
Right. Now that number is what I call full capacity. And if you worked at full speed ahead at all of that time you said you were going to devote, that's what you could do. But you can't do that because life interferes all the time. You're a freelancer. You're a one-person business. You got nobody to delegate anything to. Everything's got to be done by you.
Right.
And so if somebody in your family gets sick and you have to go to the hospital, well, there's a day gone. If something weird happens, like your mother has an issue and you've got to go do something to help her, that day's gone.
Right.
And so days disappear. So you can't do that. You got to figure out your business at half capacity. So figure out full divided into, that's my half capacity. Okay, fine. But that's only one half of the equation. That's how many gigs you could deliver. How many are you going to book? The selling and the sales part is the other capacity that we got to figure out. And what I've learned in my conversations with clients is if you get 1 gig a week, that's pretty good.
50
a year.
50 a year, okay.
Yeah. And you're not going to be working 50. Nobody works 50 weeks. And nobody works 52. Very few work 50. And that's the right way to do it. Figure it out at smaller numbers so that you have wiggle room, so that you can take a week off and you're not putting yourself behind an 8 ball. Leave yourself wiggle room so that you can recover from time that you lose.
Absolutely. So you work with several freelancers and startups. What are some of the mistakes that they often go through while figuring this capacity and pricing?
Pricing is the biggest mistake. We think that price is the most important element in whatever we're doing because that's all we ever see on TV and in our inbox. We have a sale today. We have a discount today. We have all this stuff. So we think, well, that must be the way to do it because we don't know any better, right? So first of all, we underprice our offer when we come into the market because we think, well, nobody knows who I am, so I have to come in at a lowball price. Well, nobody knows who you are. What difference does it make?
Right.
Pick a high number. So pick a number that actually generates the revenue you want. So if you want to make $100,000 a year, rule of thumb is your business has to generate $200,000.
Because 50% goes in operational expenses?
Exactly.
Okay.
50% of it is going to go into taxes, operational expenses, and make a profit.
Right.
So that money is off the table. But 50% of everything you bring in is yours.
Right.
So that's the simple formula. Okay. So that's what I'm going to make. So that's the number you need to charge. So now that you know that that's what you're charging, when you design your product, you better design it so that it's worth that number. We do it the other way around. We come up with a number and then we try to, we do it the other way around. I'm sorry.
Retrofitted.
Yeah. We don't know what we're charging. We think that the market knows what we should charge. Well, maybe once you figure out what your market is.
So it basically tells me that you're trying to aim at the people who actually can pay the price that you really want to get. So that's bottom of the funnel marketing.
Yes. Yep. It's exactly what I call bottom of the funnel marketing. We were talking about it the other day at Business Club, and I drew that sales funnel on the board. And I said, if you look at the sales funnel, the first question is, where are you? Well, you're at the very bottom of the funnel, right? And so you're coming up with all these ideas to generate leads at people that are at the top of the funnel. Well, they're as far away from you as you could possibly get. Why not start right next door? Why not start with the people you already know?
Yeah, makes sense.
And build your
contacts.
Build it from the bottom up. And we'll talk about that later. But
Sure.
But trying to attract people out of thin air in today's overcrowded marketplace just seems really hard to me.
You often talk about this concept called pro forma financial projections. Can you explain to the audience what exactly that is and what does it entail?
Well, we pretty much just covered it. That your pro forma is your projected P&L.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So this is what you think your business is going to look like. And it all starts with, I want to make $100,000. So that means my gross revenue is $200,000. So that's the top line on your P&L. The next line is owner's compensation, $100,000. The next line is operating expenses, which is generally 25% of gross revenue. And then I'm going to park 15% for taxes, and I'm going to plug in 10% for profit. And there's your very simplistic pro forma. That's your P&L.
Right.
That's the business I'm going to go build.
Got it. There's a lot of structure and setups to a company that is actually starting. How do you help the young entrepreneurs or freelancers navigate those structure and compliance and all of that stuff?
I recommend that once they start making some money, then go talk to an accountant. You don't have to hire one, just go talk to one. There are basically two structures that I think are best suited for a startup entity. Number one is an LLC, and number two is a sole proprietor. Don't incorporate at all. Don't do anything. And then depending upon what your business is, if you're a sole proprietor, you might want to get some liability insurance. A lot of people think that, well, if I'm an LLC, I'm protecting myself from the world. Maybe. It's not true.
And the
It's
structure
not
itself is not
totally
going to
true.
protect you.
No,
You still have to have insurance.
I think so. But that's a little bit after
Yeah, after you've
what I do.
established, figured out.
I'm just trying to get people to the point where they're making enough money to pay their
Right.
expenses and maybe pay themselves something. Once you get to that point, then you got to start thinking, hey, this business might actually work.
Right. What advice do you offer about managing taxes and structuring finances to help new businesses owners avoid potential pitfalls in the process?
It's setting up that pro forma. That concept I learned from the book Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. And his system, if you read it, is a little bit more complicated than I think it needs to be. He recommends, see if I can remember this, a business bank account, and all money goes into that. And then twice a month, you move money from that account into your owner's compensation account. And then you move money into a tax account. And then you move money into your profit account.
Right.
So you actually set up those 3 bank accounts so that the money is accumulating there. And I could see the logic and the power in doing that. But if you just keep score, you don't really have to do that. Just be a little bit disciplined to make sure you do that. The trick is your business bank account is the only bank account that you can make payments from. Those other 3 accounts can't. They're just savings accounts. And if you need to move money from taxes and pay your taxes, you need to move that money back into your business bank account, and then you write the check from there.
Somewhere I read there is a formula called STOP, STOP. I think it stands for, if I'm not wrong, salary, taxes, operations, and profit. So create that type of accounts, which will actually help you stop the leakage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
what Michael writes about, and I agree, is that too many of us, when we start our business, we think that every dollar that I make, if I can reinvest that in my business, it'll come back to me tenfold. No,
that's a misconception.
no, the way to think about it is, if I'm going to spend money, what's the return on that investment?
Right.
I have a client I've been debating with for the last couple of weeks. He's insistent upon buying a CRM system. And I keep asking him, why? What's it going to do for you? Well, it's going to keep track of all my conversations. And what are you going to do with those conversations? Oh, I don't know. Well, there's no sense in doing it. If it doesn't give you a return on the investment, don't do it. It's a waste of money.
Yeah. I mean, I have a different school of thought. If you're trying to build a bigger business and you want to, if you're going from the top of the funnel point of view, I know you're approaching the bottom of the funnel, but if you do top of the funnel, there's a lot of conversations that happen between top and middle and bottom. So those conversations can be recorded in the CRM. And I think CRM does help you organize a little bit, provided you know how to use it fully and you're using it fully. Most of the cases that I know of, or most of the people I know of, they just know how to enter the contact information, and they don't use the other modules that are available out there. I mean, might as well just use a Google Sheet or an Excel to do that.
It's just thinking through any expense that you're going to make, whether it's an expense of money or an expense of time. Either way, if I'm going to go do something, the question is, why? What's the outcome that I want to be able to see from that effort?
Right. Good. Okay. Shifting gears, let's talk a little bit about client acquisition strategies. There are several ways to several ways to acquire clients. But what, according to you, are some of the ways that they can acquire, and how do you help your clients acquire more clients?
One of the great misconceptions that we have when we start our business is that we think that if I announce to the world that I'm now a business coach, we think that we are now automatically on equal footing with all other business coaches. And we're not.
Right.
Nobody knows who we are. And even if we're offering a value proposition that is off the charts fantastic, so what? No, why would I believe that you can do that?
Right.
I'm meeting you for the very first time, and you're telling me that this is what your area of expertise is. And I do think human beings are very trusting souls. We want to believe what you're telling me.
Right.
And we'll probably even applaud you for what you're doing. But then if you turn around and say, well, let me help you and it'll cost you $1,000. Whoa, $1,000?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're worth $1,000. What am I getting again? So I think when we start out, I want you to consider these two questions. Are you going to spend time generating leads, which you think are going to convert into sales, or should you be building a list? And the more I've thought about this, the more I've experimented with it, it's building the list. And that's the bottom of the funnel. It's the people that you know that you can be able to tell them, this is who I am. These are the clients that I serve. These are the outcomes that I solve. If anybody in your network is looking for what I do, I just ask you to mention my name to them. You don't have to refer them to me. You don't have to introduce them to me.
Just mention my name.
Just mention my name to them. And that's what I call a word of mouth army. And that's what we ought to be building. Every day we ought to be bringing people into that army. So they need to know what I call, this is your bag, your business at a glance. The people that are in your network, the people that are on your list, they know the people you serve and the outcome that you deliver to them. They know a little bit about how you do it. And they know your why. They know that this is your ikigai.
There's some kind of credibility associated with you.
Yeah.
Great.
It's their endorsement of your character more than anything else. I mean, if they happen to turn in to be a client and they get to experience the outcome that you actually deliver, that probably makes them a little bit more valuable in your network, in your word of mouth army. But you can't count on that in the beginning. You just need to be able to go talk to your friends and say, look, this is what I'm doing. If you run across anybody that's trying to start up their own business, just mention my name. I love to talk to them. It's my favorite thing to do.
Awesome. So what's the importance of the right messaging in your pitch? And what are some tips that you can give your young entrepreneurs, tips on how to put the right message across?
During your first year in business, I think that's what you're looking for. At the end of a year, you ought to really be able to understand and know this is who my ideal client is. And you ought to be able to define that pretty specifically. And then you also ought to know what your outcome is. These are the outcomes that I deliver to those people.
Right.
And I have figured out how to do it. I know what my gig looks like. So that's what we want to accomplish. And we want to be able to describe it in words.
Right.
Fewer words, the better.
Fewer words, the better?
Fewer words, the better. Because at least my memory, sometimes good, sometimes not. But give me short, succinct, powerful things to remember. I have a much better chance than giving me 3 paragraphs.
The KISS principle?
Yeah.
Keep it simple, short?
Yes.
Cool. So, in the previous conversation that we've had, you talked about connecting with one person, at least one new person a day. And you also have this concept of, always be connecting. Can you elaborate on that concept a little bit and why it is so important for young entrepreneurs or freelancers to always be connecting?
I think that we can share good ideas with people and allow them to think. And one of my favorite expressions is stir people's brain cells.
Right.
Get their brains thinking. Because that's what we really want to do. We want them to start thinking about the values that we're bringing, and we want to be able to have those conversations. And so the conversations are the key part. And the more conversations we can have with different people in the course of a day, as a freelancer, that's probably the most effective proactive thing we can do. There are passive actions that we can take, like SEO, work in a referral system, advertising, sponsoring things, partnering with business partners, where we're setting things up and it's supposed to generate a lead or two.
Got it.
So those are passive things. But the proactive things, the important things, come back to us being able to communicate with somebody and informing them about our bag. This is who we serve. This is the outcome we cause. This is how the gig works. And this is why I'm doing it.
Makes a lot of sense. So from a connection perspective, there are really two ways of connecting. One is being online, the other is being in person. Online, you have Zoom and LinkedIn and Google Meet and all a bunch of stuff. And then there is this invaluable in-person meetings where you get to know the person in real life. What's the kind of balance do you keep for yourself, or what's the balance that you advocate others to follow?
As a freelancer, this is the business we're going to do every day. I mean, we're supposed to be generating these connections every day. Do what you like. Set it up so that you're going to be doing the things you want to do. If you're an extrovert and you want to be out in public giving speeches and doing that, do it.
Go for it. Yeah.
If you don't. If that's going to drive you nuts, if it's going to make you feel stress that you don't need to feel, you don't have to do it that way. Design a system that's going to work for you.
Cool. So these are some lead gen ideas. And then how do you keep track of these lead gen ideas? As you said, do what you like, do what you love. But at the end of the day, you need to still keep track of these leads who have come your way.
Again, I believe, especially in the beginning, as a freelancer, the possibility of us making a sale is slim and none. And so that's not what we're trying to do. All we're trying to do is make sure that the people we're talking to know who we are and what it is we can do.
Right.
That's all. And if they open the window and say, hey, Steve, talk to me a little bit more about how I should be pricing this. Okay, fine. Well, maybe we ought to do something formally and let me help you do that the right way.
Right.
I mean, I could answer a couple questions right now, but what is it you really want to do? And when the opportunity for a action-oriented conversation comes up, do it.
Step it up.
Be careful about giving all your information away. And I'm really bad at that. But if you can figure out...
Why do you say that?
Because I like to give the information away.
No, but why do you say hold it back?
Because that's the value proposition that you want them to pay for.
Okay.
And so you want to be able to understand how to do that onboarding. When somebody says yes, what do you do? I mean, in the sales training that we've all had, we've all been taught, well, what do you do when the client says no? Okay, fine. What do you do when the client says yes? What do you do then?
Right.
How do you transition from, okay, I want your help? And the answer is, okay, great. Tell me how. How can I help you?
You should be ready to answer that.
They should.
They should be.
They should. Because you want them to tell you what they want. Now, I can help them design that. And then once you get that depiction available, now you can talk about a price. Because now you know what I'm going to help you do.
Right.
I can help you do that. It'll take 5 sessions, and I charge $900 for it. Would you like to get started?
That's more definitive and more succinct.
Yeah.
Cool. You answered quite a lot of questions. I know we only wanted to touch upon a few things here today. So let's just get into some of the rapid fire questions. It's going to be interesting.
Okay.
In your opinion, what's the most important factor in setting the pricing?
Figuring out the money that you need or want to make. Because that's where it all
in combination with the capacity.
Well, first, it starts with that. It just starts with how much money does this thing have to generate in order for you to keep doing it?
Okay.
I had a client the other day, and we asked him that. He said, how much money do you need to make with this? He said, well, I really don't need to make anything. What? I mean, this thing doesn't have any expenses for you? I said, oh, no, it has expenses. Well, then it at least needs to cover them, doesn't it?
Why wouldn't he need to make any money then?
Because it's a side hustle.
Okay. It's just a hobby.
Yeah. Well, it's his mission in life. I mean, he is so passionate about what he's trying to do with his side hustle. But we haven't yet zeroed in on how to turn it into a revenue producing endeavor.
Interesting. So what's one thing that every solopreneur should do in their first year of business?
I mentioned that earlier. They should understand their bag, their business at a glance, be able to get those words on paper, as few words as possible. That gets the point across. That I work with freelancers. I help them design a business so that they know how much money they can make. And I do it because I think freelancing is the way to live our lives.
Talking about freelancing, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about freelancing?
And I mentioned that before too, that we think that when I jump into the marketplace, I am now on equal footing with everyone else. Everyone else who's doing what I'm doing, or even near what I'm doing. I have a website. I have a LinkedIn profile. They do too. We must be equal. No, not necessarily.
You're in your own world. You're just starting out. Nobody knows you.
Nobody knows you. And we've got to get over these. This first year is really important about building that list of your word of mouth
credibility and word of mouth and connections, and always be connecting. So
always be connecting.
Cool. So if you could have dinner with one business person or one business leader, who would that be and why?
This question came up the other day at a networking event, and I thought it was so great. The question was, so what's your favorite meal, and who would be the 3 people that you would like to have join you for that meal?
Within that circle, or within, or anyone?
Anyone.
Okay.
Dead or alive, right? So I gave that question a lot of thought. And so my 2 favorite meals are hard shell crabs and oysters. And the person I'm going to mention wrote a song about give me oysters and beer every day of the year and I'll feel fine. And that's Jimmy Buffett. And so my ideal dinner, lunch, meal would be me, my brother Jeff, my wife Harriet, and Jimmy Buffett eating crabs and oysters.
No business leader?
Jimmy Buffett is a business leader, and I would love to know how he accomplished what he accomplished.
Interesting. Very interesting. All right. The most rewarding part of being able to help a freelancer or new startup?
There's a couple of things. The first one is when we figure out this is the price you ought to charge, and this is the gig that you're going to do in order to deliver that outcome you promised. When we get that on paper and somebody looks up at me and goes, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. And I only have to do 40 of them in order to make the money that I want. I'm not trying to serve everybody. I only have to get 40 clients a year, or I only have to get 60 clients a year.
Yeah. Sometimes knowing, also, I think you mentioned this in one of our conversations, not knowing what not to do is also part of the process, and it helps you a lot.
Yeah. There's just so many things that come across our inbox, we experience at a networking event. And I mean, we're always being hit with these new ideas and such. And some of them sound really, really good and really, really cool.
Yeah.
But
indeed,
are they really going to help me? We have a mutual friend in Steve Edwards, and he and I both have built these definitions of who we are on ChatGPT.
right.
And when a new book comes out, I go in there and I say, hey, here's this book. Is this book going to be of any value to me?
How do you keep track of which new book is coming?
I have a couple of gurus that I follow, and they're the ones that
Recommend the books.
tell me books. Like Seth Godin's one of my heroes, and he just published a new book.
I know he wrote this tribes thing about tribes.
He's written, what do you count? 29 books, I think he said. Funny, I wrote a book, and I knew that nobody was going to buy my book because nobody knows who I am. So I emailed Seth Godin, and I asked him if he wanted to co-author it with me. And he responded.
Wow, he did.
Quickly.
Right.
And he said, no thanks. But hey, he
responded.
responded.
There you go. Well, Steve, once again, a pleasure. It's always, great to see you talk and share some of the insights and, passion to help freelancers. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Look forward to having you more.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Hey guys, I hope you really liked the video. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment. And we would like to reach many more small business owners. I would really appreciate if you can share the video with them as well. Thank you and see you until next time. Have a great one.